Green Lantern 21, legacy number 557. This is Jeremy Adams and Jack Herbert on the art. So this pays off how the last issue ended, which was Starbreaker. Is that the name of the villain?
Starbreaker.
Yeah, and Sorrow showed up to try and steal the Source Ball from or Indiana Jones team that were out there getting that. Hal shows up pretty quickly here as well to give them some backup. However, unfortunately, the bad guys do get away with it. And it's a really cool little scene, actually, because basically Odyssey grabs the ball and is sort of charged with taking care of it. But Sorrow, Emo Lantern here, basically like gets into her head and like, you know, makes her feel sorrow and like upsets her. And she starts like, you know, being like, oh, they're all gone. Oh, everyone I cared about. And like, you know, and that's how he's able to take it from her. So it's showing how like vulnerable a lot of characters are to what Sorrow's powers are, which is this idea of getting into their head and making them break down and making them just sort of lose any kind of focus on what they were actually supposed to be doing. So we get this big scene. They do a whole thing where she's basically weeping tears at the end of it, and like Connor has to carry her. Sorry, I was thinking of the Superior Superboy there. My apologies. So
look, I'm not going to argue it. However, John's not doing Indiana Jones Adventures in Space, okay? Connor is.
No, Kyle is.
Yes.
Connor's just there.
Like so is Jock Lindsay, the pilot. It's fine. He still goes on the adventure.
I'll assume that's the real name from the movie, but no one else remembers that.
Right? I do. And so that's all that matters.
I just do. No one else does.
Do you remember the snake's name?
The snake's name? No, I don't remember the snake's name.
That's just Reggie.
All right, Matt.
I might have seen Raiders too many times. Real quick, before we go off of the scene, Kyle and Connor staring down Starbreaker, and then when Starbreaker grows, right, almost like a Power Ranger villain.
Yeah.
Kyle hits him with the thing. He can grow? Did you know he could grow? That line cracked me up. Just the banter, you know?
Yeah. So everyone goes back to base in Oa, and they kind of talk about what's going on here. And, you know, Jessica Cruz is kind of running the show, which is kind of cool. But they basically come up, they reveal kind of what they figured out with Kelly and the others, which is basically to fix this problem of like the emotional spectrum being all over the place and it kind of manifesting in people who can't control it, they have to stabilize the spectrum. And quickly Hal catches on what that means. It means they have to rebuild all the different power batteries. Like, they have to make the choice of doing that. And immediately, like, you know, whatever character says, like, yeah, but a lot of the other ones are pretty, like, bad, right? Like, they caused a lot of trouble. But I do kind of like this idea that they have to accept that the entire spectrum is important and it all has to exist. That they can't just, like, get rid of the fear and the anger, because, yeah, obviously those are negative emotions. No one's going to argue that, but they still have to exist. They still have a place in the spectrum, and nothing's going to be good if the Grey Lantern and Starbreaker end up, you know, sucking all the happiness out of everyone.
Like, yeah, what would that power battery be like? Like, you have the ability to feel great pain. Like, what would? Yeah, that would just cause the universe complete chaos, right? Because is it cause or feel or like what would the emo lanterns be all about?
You have the ability to cause great pains. The BDSM power battery.
Okay, so then it have to be feel great pain, right? Because Sorrow's all about how he feels in the moment.
It's not about feeling empty. It's not about feeling pain per se.
Yeah. Well, right? yeah. But I'm talking like the sadness, you know. But yeah, and I
you
like
have
that
the ability to cry like a little bitch. Welcome to the Grey Lantern Corps.
Hope you like listening to Death Cab, because that's all we play here. But I like whoever the Guardian is that's sitting at the table here. The text in his speech bubble is red, right? So it's almost like Guardians are feeling this residual, right? Because he says, you know, that leaves a source energy that was lost to us, right? So he's angry now that they're not going to be like the preeminent source, right? Because if all the Corps are equal, then that doesn't make the Green Lanterns the police, if you will, right? They'll have to actually work together.
Yeah, I like this idea of like, no, the entire spectrum is important, and we have to accept that they need to exist in some form, because it brings it in this idea of, I guess, kind of similar to like the red and the green, like both have to exist and all that. Even the rot has its place in that kind of ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's the same with the spectrum. Like, even though obviously, yes, some of the red lanterns or whoever might give them problems again, all of them do have to exist, and I kind of like that idea. So they have to like take the initiative and build all the batteries so that all of the energies are focused and flowing where they should. So Kyle and his team, which is Connor and Odyssey, are given the task of going to find a cache of nth metal. They're sent to do that, right? So they go off to do that, and there's some more banter there and whatnot. Whereas Hal is like, hey, I know where I can get some source energy from. And we don't really get much of an elaboration on that yet, but he goes to the watchtower and runs into Carol, who's doing Justice League stuff. And he's like, oh, hey, that's my girl. How are you doing? Like, and she's like, no, can't go. And there's like no spaces in her text. It's just, can't go, got Justice League business, bye. And he's like, oh, now I feel neglected. I'm going to run after her and like help. So we get a fun little sequence where like some, F-list villain is making people float in cars. And Star Sapphire here, saves them. Hal helps by saving some cops and some big donut constructs. So it is what it is. There's actually something important at the end of this scene, but like the whole point here is that, hey, Carol's a member of the Justice League. She's been working with them. She's getting better at it. All the rest of it. The big thing at the end of the scene, though, is that when they go after this supervillain who was like robbing the bank and like making cars float, all of a sudden, like, he just kind of stops and like feels like he's not fighting anymore, and then all of a sudden, Dr. Bones or Mr. Bones is there with Hector Hammond, who is working with the DEO to calm down villains. And of course, Hal and Carol are like, what the hell are you doing, Bones? He's dangerous. You can't be trusting Hector Hammond. So, and we find out within like 5 pages that he's actually doing really bad things, and he's up to no
back
good.
up to his old ways.
Yes, there's no good guy in Hector Hammond. This isn't Sinestro where he's like maybe kind of a good guy. So yeah. Anyway, I thought it was fun. Hal basically asked Carol to come with them to go like deal with this important mission. So presumably that's what we're going to be doing there. I kind of like that they met up again, but then we split into these 2 distinct teams again. It's just kind of fun having Kyle be kind of the second lead of the book.
For sure. Yeah, so this Z-list villain was called Mind Bomber, right? Bomber. And so he's using, like, it seems like low-grade, like, telekinesis or telepathy or whatever to commit these crimes.
Yes, he has telekinesis. Yes. There's no indication that this Mind Bomber fellow can read minds. That's telepathy.
Right? Why is he called Mind Bomber? I just assumed that he could.
I mean, there's no indication he can. All we see him do is pick up cars with his mind.
Yeah. And then anyway, so Hector Hammond's standing there looking not quite how I remember him. I can't remember the last time we saw Hector Hammond. Was it Blackest Night?
It's been a while, I don't know.
Yeah, I just remember he had a big, massive head. Now he's normal looking again, which was quite, startling.
Yeah, recuperated apparently. So Kyle and his crew are off to an old outpost to try and get some intel.
They're going to the Reach, and the Reach, if I remember right, the Reach are the ones that created the Blue Beetle tech. So maybe we'll see some of that type of stuff here. Out in Nth Metal.
There's an abandoned mine that was doing Nth Metal stuff, so they're coming to kind of claim it. But they find someone chained up, like in this like mine, who's pleading for help. So we'll see where that goes. But the big thing that we do see though is that Hector Hammond is like stabbing into Mind Bomber's head and saying, "Oh, I've been slowly building my power back up," which suggests to me that he's like taking powers and stuff from people and. Doing some really evil shit. Whereas Hal and Carol have enlisted the help of Dove. Hal doesn't know why she's there, which Carol says is a bit, or Dove says that's rude. But it's like, hey, she's going to go in and they're going to try to find out what Hector Hammond's up to. So the cliffhanger at the end of the issue is Dove being like, "Hey, hurry!" And we get this sort of. I actually really like this final page because this full page spread is like super mad scientist, where Hector Hammond's standing in a lab coat. He's holding this big, scary syringe. There's blood all over his shirt. He's smiling, and behind him, you just see like Mind Bomber's like scalp's been all like pinned down with like their medical scissors. It's just exposed brain. I love this as like a horror movie visual at the end.
It's very Hannibal Lecter, right?
I was going to say more Reanimator.
Or Reanimator. It's Reanimator too. Yeah, he's got a big old bulbous head coming out of the side of his. Well, not a whole head, but he has a big old mound coming off of his head now. Hector Hammond.
Yes, he's starting to grow that brain that he likes to grow.
Ginormous. God, Hector Hammond sucks in the best way.
Dear. So, because he clearly still had telepathy because he was using it on Mind Bomber earlier. That was the whole thing, is he was sort of like calming him down with his powers. But now he's like saying, "Oh, I can feel everything returning." So clearly he's juicing himself with this extra brain power. So. I mean, yeah, we'll see where that goes. So it is interesting though that Hal got distracted when he was meant to being off to get like some source energy for the new power batteries, and instead he's now doing like a team up with Carol dealing with Hector Hammond, who's up to no good in the neighborhood. But
and if you notice, Hector's bubbles are still orange, so I'm wondering if there's going to be some of that orange greed, here, because we're gonna have to bring that one back up too, So I'm wondering if this is part of the mission, right?
Well, they wouldn't know if he was connected to. But first of all, I don't think that's the same color of orange you would get for the orange spectrum when we do like Larfree stuff. So I don't think it's connected to that. But even if it was, I don't think like Hal and that would know or like have any reason to think that he's connected to that stuff. If it ends up being connected, that'll be like a writing thing. It won't be something that's the characters are aware of.
Okay.
So, I disagree.
But yeah,
I guess is what I'm saying.
Full mad scientist here at the end, which I love. The other thing too is like, why is Dove there? Like for reals? Like because she's stealthy?
Because she had the power set to sneak into the building again. I don't know. Just on these slightly orange bubbles at the end, I think that color is just showing that it's his thoughts. Like it has like powerful telepathy.
No. True, but this had come up during Johns' run, and he found out that Hector Hammond was using orange energy, right? He had the orange, I forget, it was the snake looking thing. He had the orange entity throughout him.
I'd forgotten that, to be fair.
That was the source of his power, right? That was when Johns went back in retcon during Secret Origin. It was that piece with the little gremlin characters that have the orange stuff too. Okay, well, so
that's more compelling to me, but I still need to see more evidence before I. Yeah,
I'm just again them fighting a traditional Hal villain. That's fine. Hector Hammond's one of the OG guys in that way. But yeah, I'm wondering. I know they're looking for source energy and stuff, but if they have to stabilize the spectrum, I think Hector Hammond's a good place to start here. Because who knows? I mean, I remember Larfleeze getting loose during, I think, the Civil War. But we haven't seen anything else to do with Larfleeze since.
Yeah, I still don't think Hector's getting to do with like what Hal's mission is, though. Even if Hector Hammond is connected somehow to the Spectrum stuff going wonky, maybe he does have some of the orange avatar that they can use to put in the power battery or whatever. This is still not the mission he got. The mission he got was to go off and get source energy. This has nothing to do with that. This is still a distraction. Yes. Maybe a worthwhile distraction. I'm not saying that he shouldn't look into this, because Hector Hammond is clearly up to something, but I don't think it has anything to do with what I think it might tie in some way later on, but this is clearly like a pivot. Like him and Carol have gotten distracted because they couldn't let this rest because Hector Hammond's too too notorious in their past to not pay attention to it. So, yeah, no, art's solid again. Really falls in line with the last issue. I think Herbert does a good job of being very Zermanico-like, even if it's not obviously as good, but it's surprisingly close for the most part, I would say. Very similar style. The coloring's the same, I think, which goes a long way to making it feel similar as well.
Yeah, it's very consistent throughout. Like all the space stuff looks just as good as the Earth stuff, right? And again, making Hector Hammond, who is that guy? Hector Hammond looking like a weirdo freak at the end. I think I always like when artists are kind of given a little bit of rein to make grotesque things, and I think that here Herbert really stood out with that last page.
Yeah. All right. What are you giving Green Lantern?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
Yeah, I think I agree with it. I think the book's really solid. I'm loving the ongoing story that both Green Lantern books are kind of sharing right now with this Spectrum stuff, and I like the characters have some clear goals, and yeah, I don't know. I have very little to complain about, honestly. It's just good, and Hector showing up did feel like a bit of a swerve because it felt kind of different, but I was like, okay, this is solid. I like what they're doing, and it definitely won me over with that last page and him being like a super mad scientist already. Although it does make Bones look like an absolute idiot, but that's that whatever. That's not new.
No, but that's kind of like, oh crap, again.
Yeah.
Okay, just get someone else in the DEO.